So where do we get the reference from? The references to Al-Aiyn are explicit in the Sunnah, without a doubt. There are more than 10 ahadith about Al-Aiyn, some of them in Bukhari and Muslim, very few, and the rest of them in a number of Sunan, quite a lot of them in the tertiary books. So let's divide hadith books into three categories. The category number one is Bukhari and Muslim. Category number two is Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nisa, Ibn Majah, Muwatta, Musnad Imam Ahmad. This is secondary. Category three is beyond this, the Mustadrak and Al-Bayhaqi. So this is like you have hundreds in that category. I'm not even looking at category three, because that is where you find a lot of fabricated, a lot of very weak. In the Sahihain, Bukhari and Muslim, there are references to Al-Aiyn. In Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Nisa, Ibn Majah, Musnad Imam Ahmad, there are at least 6 or 7, if not more, references to Al-Aiyn. So the notion of Al-Aiyn is very explicit in books of hadith. And let's go over some of them, inshallah ta'ala, and then we'll call it an evening and continue next week, inshallah. So let's go over the hadith references. The most explicit one, which is mentioned, various versions are found in Al-Bukhari and Al-Muslim, and some have said this hadith is mutawatir. It is Al-Aynu haqq. Al-Aynu haqq. You all understand that much Arabic? Al-Aynu haqq. This is considered by some scholars to be the highest level of tawatur. Allahu alam, I don't think it is mutawatir, but it is definitely sahih. It is Bukhari, Muslim, and other books they have Al-Aynu haqq. In Sahih Muslim, there is the version that if anything could overcome qadar, it would be Ayn. In other words, Ayn is so powerful. If anything could overcome qadar, if means it doesn't. If anything could destroy qadar, it would be Al-Aiyn. This is in Sahih Muslim. Okay, so we have here in Bukhari and Muslim very explicit, a very explicit hadith. In Sahih Muslim, another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ visited Salama's house, and she saw a little girl. He saw a little girl. Jariya could be a little girl, it could be a slave girl. Jariya has both meanings here. That had a discoloring on her face. في وجهها سفعة. So the Prophet ﷺ said, استرقوا لها فإن بها النظرة. Get somebody to do ruqyah on her because she has a nazra. What is a nazra? Almost all the scholars of interpretation and extrapolation of hadith have said a nazra is al-ayn. An-nazara, al-ayn. So he saw a girl that had a physical impediment, physical disparity on her skin. And he analyzed it immediately. He said, get somebody to do ruqyah because she has a nazra. This is again as explicit as you can get. In another hadith in Sahih Muslim, so again we're still keeping with Sahihain right now, in Sahih Muslim, that the Prophet visited Asma bint Umays. And Asma bint Umays was the wife of Ja'far. And Ja'far had passed away, shaheed. And so he saw the children of Ja'far, and he said, why are the children of my brother so thin, as if they have a disease? Why are they looking like this, feeble? Maybe the word feeble is better than thin. The Arabic word is dhari'a, which means basically they look sickly, they look feeble. Okay, why are the children of my brother, he called Ja'far my brother, why are they looking like this? So do they have a sickness, or are they in need? Do you not have any money? She said, Asma said, no, وَلَكِنْ الْعَيْنُ تُسْرِعُ إِلَيْهِمْ. No, but Al-Aiyn is affecting them. Quickly they're coming. Ayn is coming to us. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, irqihim, do ruqyah on them. So he affirmed that this is because of Ayn, and he said, do ruqyah on them. So this is another explicit hadith, and the same version or a longer version is found in Tirmidhi, that the Prophet visited Asma bint Umays, and she was the one that said that, Ya Rasulullah, the children of Ja'far, you can see that the Ayn affects them. should I get somebody to do ruqyah? And he said, yes, get somebody, because if anything will be more stronger than qadr, it would have been Al-Aiyn. So the concept is there that he visited the house of Asma, and the children of Ja'far seemed to be struggling, and he said this is because of Ayn. In the Muslim Imam Ahmad, the Prophet Aisha narrated that the Prophet ﷺ entered my house and he heard the cry of a child. He heard the cry of a child. And he said, what has happened to this child that he is crying? You should do ruqyah for him against the ayn. In other words, he noticed the type of cry and he said, what has happened to this child? Do ruqyah for the ayn. So he literally said, this crying is not because of hunger, it is because of al-ayn. And the longest hadith we'll do, it's a very long hadith, I'm going to summarize it, and this hadith is mentioned in its long form in Musnad Imam Ahmad, and in the shorter versions it is found in An-Nisa'i and others, that Umama ibn Sahal ibn Hunayf said that his father Sahal ibn Hunayf narrated that they once went on an expedition towards Mecca, and when they came to a certain valley, Sahal ibn Hunayf took off his qamis, took off his shirt, and he started doing a ghusl. And Sahal ibn Hunayf was a very powerful, strong man with a very good-looking skin. And so Amir ibn Rabi'ah started staring at him. And he said, I have never seen a skin that is more handsome than this one. And when he said this, Sahal ibn Hunayf fell down as if he was overcome with a sickness. And he was brought to the Prophet ﷺ. And he was told, Ya Rasulullah, can you look at Sahal ibn Hunayf? Something happened to him and he cannot raise his head up. And he was totally fine. So the Prophet ﷺ said, do you accuse anybody of harming him? هل تتهمون به أحد? Do you accuse anybody? So they said, Amir ibn Rabi'ah stared at him. Nazar ilayhi Amir ibn Rabi'ah. Then he just fell down. So the Prophet ﷺ called Amir, and فَتَغَيَّضَ عَلَيْهِ, he became angry at him. And he said, عَلَى مَا يُقْتَلُ أَحَدُكُمْ صَاحِبَهُ. Why will one of you kill his brother or harm his brother? Why will one of you kill or harm his brother? Why didn't you, when you saw something that you were impressed by, بَرَّكْتَ لَهُ, say barakallahu fi? Why didn't you بَرَّكْتَ لَهُ? Why do you have to be full of like i'jab and wonder? You should have praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he commanded him to do a type of wudu. We're going to come to this next week inshallah. And then after that was done, Suhayd stood up as if nothing had happened to him. So this hadith is in the Musnad Imam Ahmad, and it is absolutely explicit that Ayn happened and the Sahabi fell down, and the Prophet got angry at Amir, saying, why did you have to do this? You should have said barakallahu fi and praised him. And then he cured the issue here. And there are other traditions as well. So to summarize, and then we'll start next week inshallah ta'ala, to summarize, the concept of Ayn is well documented in pre-Islamic history. The Qur'an does not explicitly reference it, but there are indirect references that have been interpreted for Ayn. And as for the hadith, it is absolutely explicit. There are no two opinions about this. Therefore, generally speaking, those groups that denied hadith, they had the opportunity to deny Ayn and Nazar, like the Mu'tazila. And those groups that accepted hadith, they by and large accepted Al-Aiyn, and then there's a degree of interpretation between them, and this is where we're going to pause and continue inshallah ta'ala next week. May Allah protect us all from Al-Aiyn, and we'll continue inshallah.